this is the roundtable about XR. So official title, 2020 Vision for XR. Is this the year AR and VR breakthrough? We're also going to be talking about a bit of MR because I know some of us are interested in that space and work there as well. But first of all, we'll introduce ourselves. My name is Cowley, and I'm of PocketGamer.biz, and we'll be hosting this panel. And as alluded to earlier, I also did a podcast earlier. Please do check it out. It was very fun to do. And then we go around the room. So based on who is on my list, Kelly, you can go first.
I'm Kelly Vero. I'm from So Real. We're based in Bern, Switzerland. I'm head of games development there. Hello.
Hello. Tell us a bit about So Real as well, because I feel like some people may not know what it is exactly that you do.
We have currently the fastest solution on the planet for making digital twins. So whatever you put in at one end comes out the other, and it's game engine ready, and it's just ready for you to use.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Josh, you can go next.
Yep, so I'm Josh Naylor. I'm a developer technology engineer at Magic Leap as part of the developer relations team. So developer relations is obviously helping developers get onto the platform, helping them onboard onto the device, understand what mixed reality and spatial computing is and designing for it. And working with Tommy's team as well. So they've shipped 2 Magic Leap applications so far, which is great.
Excellent. And Tommy, I'm sure you need no introduction, but if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
My name is Tommy Palm. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Resolution Games, which is a VR and AR video game developer. I've been working primarily with mobile video games throughout my career, but for the past 5.5 years, I've been focusing on virtual reality and augmented reality.
Excellent. And we do have another panelist who is supposed to join us at some point. Hopefully she does, and we can introduce her then. But for now, I do have questions sort of directed that I think for certain people might be interested in, but I just, if you want to join in at any time, please do just start talking, and we'll take it as a sort of free-for-all from there. But I just wanted to start. We're going to be looking at the 2020 market. Is this the year for XR and that kind of thing? But I think it's always important to look back and set some context first. So how was 2019 for the XR market across AR, VR, MR, all the realities? Anybody feel free to dive in on that one.
Go on, Josh.
I mean, it was very mixed. I think it was very mixed. If you think of, I kind of separate it into high end and low end VR. High end wise, obviously we've got the Rift S launched in March, the Quest in May, and both of those products, especially the Quest, actually outstanding. I think they did something like 180,000 units in Q3 of last year, which is insane, right? For VR right now. And I know we've been saying, is this the year of VR and AR for about 6 years now? I think since 2014. And I think it's at the point now where a standalone, very consumer ready at a decent price point unit is there. It's a VR console, you could say now. It's plug in and play, you've got it ready. And now we're just waiting for amazing content. Like the hardware is finally here at a good price point for consumers, and it's great. On the other hand, I think a lot of people have shunned low-end VR. You know, the Oculus Go, you had a lot of mobile stuff, and it's taken a massive, massive drop. 360 videos, people are very turning up their nose at that now. And I think it can still be very engaging content. Like there's a big divide between people who are really into it and then people who are not at all. So I think that's still needed in some ways for user education, to getting it out there to people. But again, we've seen a massive downturn in that. So
I think what 2019 did is kind of like offered us that sort of a cusp between what you just talked about, Josh, and the direction that we're going in now. So it's kind of like I don't really want to say this because it's weird on recording, but the Go and 360, etc., has been a bit of a gateway drug for people to sort of go, we'll dip our toe in the water, see whether it's really what we want to do, and then we'll kind of go for it. I think on my side, I've definitely seen a heck of a lot of volume in terms of new studios, new businesses, new ideas and people really wanting to make a bit more of a difference in 2019. And so hopefully in 2020, I mean, I don't want to preempt what we're going to look forward to, but definitely we'll start to see a bit more diversity, because we're really lacking that kind of diversity in terms of content. I think we're starting to get there now. We're starting to move away from sort of horror, VR, AR experiences, etc., and starting to move towards more sort of immersive, more story-driven, not saying that horror isn't, but more kind of touchy-feely type stuff that we kind of only dipped our toe into the water with.
Yeah, I know. I mean, all the other stuff is very arcadey or very gimmicky, and it's becoming more mature now, I think.
Yeah.
Tommy, is any thoughts on 2019 market?
Well, I agree a lot with previous speakers there. I think from our studio point of view, the Quest was fantastic. It's the first time when we're seeing good retention numbers. So we've typically seen with the other headsets that they sell, people buy the game, they like it, but they don't stay on the platform. They churn out, they sell their headsets in the secondhand market or just leave it in their closet. With the Quest, that hasn't happened at all. People stay in it, like Chris there in the background. So that's very, very encouraging. We have Resolution Games have massive growth in sales numbers due to that. So games like Angry Birds, and we released a game called Akron, Attack of the Squirrels. They've been doing super well. And we're seeing not only for a long time, we have the kind of VR enthusiast target audience, which is often male IT experts, people working with VR or wanting to work with VR. But now we're seeing much more families and people playing with friends, which is great. That's where we need to go.
Yeah, I feel like we're really hitting kind of like a Wii moment, where previously people who played games all the time were just console players, hardcore gamers. And when the Wii came around, it was more of a family thing. People shared it and people shared their experiences. And then with the Quest, again, like Tommy said, you're passing it around and you're enjoying it more together in families, in social situations, because it is so easy. It's more accessible. I'd also say as well that like the players in mobile AR are really putting a big force behind it as well. If you look at Apple and Google releasing AR Core and AR Kit, they're really pushing it with their marketing. They're bringing it to the forefront of their keynotes and improving the tech massively. If you've just seen what the new iPad with the LiDAR scanning, they're really pushing that tech, which is great. Like it means that it's more accessible on the mobile AR front as well.
We just got testing it. It's really exciting. Yeah. But finally, Apple have got behind something, and they're really going to go for it, and we're all really going to get excited. And then maybe they're going to pull the rug out from under our feet. I hope not. I really do this time.
Speaking of mobile AR, we've just been joined by Christina.
Hi.
Hello. If you could just quickly introduce yourself and Thoughtfish. And also, we've just been talking about the 2019 market for XR. If you have any thoughts on how the 2019 was for AR, that'd be great as well.
Okay. Yes. So thank you, and sorry for just joining now. It looks like you couldn't find me. I have been in the call from the beginning, but now I'm here. So. Okay, yes, we at Thoughtfish are, so what we're doing is we're working in the real world AR space. So Thoughtfish was founded with the vision that how awesome it would be that every game could be influenced by the real world. So in order to make this happen, we created a technology which is called Koala, like the koala bear. It means context-aware location assessment. And this is a software as a service solution where you can find any kind of real-world data point. So be it geolocation, weather, moon phase, crime, transportation, heights, whatever is out there, you can find at our platform and use it to change the gameplay. And it doesn't only have to be visuals, it can be any kind of feature. So imagine a farming game where it starts raining on your farm because it's raining outside and it's buffing your crops or stuff like that. And we are also developing games on that to show what can be done in the real world genre. So we are not strictly AR, so it's not only about visuals, but we're thinking that AR can be really fantastic if we start not only thinking about visuals, but also thinking about letting the real world influence what's happening inside of your app.
Cool. And did you have any thoughts about 2019 for AR? Sorry.
Yeah, thoughts on. So we had. So we are looking from a bit of a different perspective because of our real world approach.
Mm-hmm.
So on the one hand side, it was a really fascinating year. On the other hand, lots of expectations were not met. So when we're thinking about Wizards Unite, for example, people had so high hopes for the title to show that the real world AR is a genre which can repeat a success like Pokemon Go. And so far, when we look at the titles, the tremendous success everyone was expecting with the next big IP title never happened. It's not a really fair comparison because I personally think that nothing can compare to the success of Pokemon Go, and expecting that is a bit too much. But we still didn't see the proof that this is working repeatedly. I personally think that it will, but it also needs changes when it comes to how people build that kind of games and what to use. And on the other hand, 2019 was a very interesting and exciting year, especially for us, because we have seen when it comes to seeing developers using real world happenstances for their apps, we have seen a tremendous influx of developers who were just waiting for such a technology, and people really jumping on it and really wanting to develop something. And everything, the stuff which is developed is so different from what we would have experienced that this was a really exciting year.
Cool, thank you very much. So we kind of touched a bit, as everyone was talking about 2019, on your predictions for 2020 and how the market's going to change and grow. I was kind of wondering, like, obviously that's we're only a couple of months into the year, but the world has changed massively thanks to the coronavirus pandemic and that kind of thing. Have your predictions for the future for this year changed at all due to the pandemic, or are you still all sort of in the belief that things in AR and VR and MR are still going to change and grow in the same way you always felt that they would?
That's a good question. I think for us, because we're kind of we offer a service, so I think for us guys, the coronavirus really is just put us front and center in terms of workload. Because you guys are all working from home, you've already got your workflows and pipelines in place, and you're just sort of carrying on kind of as you are. There are a certain number of developers who are finding it quite difficult to make that transition, but a lot of guys that are involved in VR and AR and MR especially, we're completely flat out in terms of MR because museums are desperate for us to scan in their artifacts, and they want us to really take a hold of and help them to kind of visualize the entire online marketplace for them. Because it's very lucrative and they want to be doing it now. So for us, we've had to really sort of ramp up. A lot of the things that we do, you see, are X-ray related. So you can get the real sort of Superman vision. You can see inside things. You can go inside stuff. So I'm doing everything from planning raves inside a piece of sushi to doing stuff for museums in London. Yeah. So I've never been busier. It's great. Keep it up.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's massively accelerated any predictions anyone could have had because of the situation.
Right.
Like Tommy said, retention is a massive thing. Like people using the headset daily or weekly by themselves or with their families. Like it's just screen time, basically. Like how much screen time can we get people into the headset? And sales as well. Like we've seen many developers come out now saying they've earned millions from VR games, like, super hot over the Christmas period, 7 days, 2 million, I think it was. There's Half-Life, which is at 48,000 concurrent players all at once. There's you know, a few of us have announced like million sales in weeks, which is great. And it's down to players now have the time to go back to those systems daily or weekly and spend their money in those. So it's accelerated everything, which is great. And for us at Magic Leap, it's been amazing because, you know, our big thing is about being co-present and collaboration and communication in different areas of the world all at the same time. And now I can be there in my living room with holograms of colleagues all around the world and talk to them in a spatialized environment.
Cool.
I think there's one thing that is negative about this crisis, and that's well, there's several, obviously. Reason people are dying, but from a VR point of view, hardware is not shipping the way it's supposed to. Yeah. So we'll see a delay in the market due to that. But other than that, I agree with what's being said previously. We see more sales and more people active on the devices because they're home for the ones who already have it. But when it comes to the Quest, the sales cycle has been slow because it has been sold out in many places in the world. So in Sweden, that you see in the background, there hasn't been a big sale of the Quest, or we don't have Magic Leaps here. So we look forward to some hardware when all this is over.
Also, from the development perspective, the coronavirus really is slowing down the development process for a lot of people, as I said before. So that's a problem because, as Tommy just said, you know, the sales are affected by the development. So if there's no content and there's nothing there, so we actually need studios to like just go flat out crazy and just make stuff, just find a way to do it, because we need those sales to keep that VR, AR, MR, sort of general XR high and up. Otherwise, again, we lose again against other market forces, like Animal Crossing. So we've got to keep going.
Yeah, when's Animal Crossing in VR going to happen? That's
the dream, right?
That's got to be the next big thing, surely. Next idea for you, Tommy.
I think. Sorry, if I may. I think that the whole thing is a little bit different for the AR sphere, the real world AR, because all these products, they depend on people being outside and experiencing the outside, and this is now completely breaking away. I think this whole crisis has one benefit to this sphere. I mean, we see a lot of updates coming for these kind of games where features are pushed which allow people to play more from home, and maybe having a feature which draws the content to their place, or maybe give them something to walk without actually walking. And I think that these kind of features really benefit these kinds of games, because we have seen, apart from Pokemon Go, that players really don't like to walk, so they don't want to be. So it's okay to walk because everyone walks some places, but people don't want to be hindered in progression. So they don't want to be blocked by the game dictating that you now have to go outside to do this and that. And so the one thing we are learning right now in that sphere is that if you want to create a really cool game, then the being outside, the walking, the having the world influence your game is an add-on. So it's on top, it gives you extra perks instead of being the base for your gameplay. And this is something where the games are restructured right now due to the coronavirus. And this is very interesting from a game design perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I kind of answered one of my questions about revenues and engagement and stuff. Obviously, those are improving. And I kind of wanted to go back to, so we were sort of talking about what kind of genres of games, or genres of games that are now evolving. Like, what do you think is going to be important in AR and VR, especially now you consider that people are spending more time inside, so location-based AR is changing. Is that going to affect the kind of games we see? And was saying about horror games, are they going away? Like, what can we expect in terms of games from this year that you think are going to be big? It's open to everybody.
I would like to start. I think something that I've been very excited about all along is online games and more persistence. And I think that's one of the great opportunities with both VR and AR to actually, like, you have this sense of presence and be able to meet and interact with other people there is very meaningful. But as long as the market's been so immature and so small, it's been very hard to do that. So one of the big focus from our studio has been to make sure that we get more social experiences together.
Cool.
I'd agree completely, like 100%. I think, you know, persistence permitting, we've got to be in a position where we can really drive the hardware and software elements towards more of a social footing and a social basis. Me personally, I'm a big RPG fan. I want to do more RPG in XR. I think this is like vitally important for us to be able to go down the road of total immersion. And total storytelling is not about riding roller coasters or being in survival horrors for me. It's more about witnessing, feeling, touching, and being more tactile in the environments that are being created by these amazing developers.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just more mature content. Like, everything has been very minigame-esque, kind of a lot of replayable content that you just get better at as time goes on, because it's been fast and easy for developers to make. Like, most of the development studios, probably less than 10 people that were making stuff in VR, where now we're seeing bigger teams working on more immersive, better engaging content. And like Tommy said, more social stuff. Like, I just checked VR Meetup right now on Steam stats, like 12,000 people playing it. Like, I had a call scheduled and someone said, hey, do you want to hang out in VR chat instead of a meeting, or instead of a Zoom call, instead of a Hangouts? So those type of engagements are going to start happening more and more and more. And that's how we grow, right? That's the whole point of social, is that people coming together, and one person might suggest it to 5 other people, and then you're all in there together.
Yeah, I think this also applies to AR or real world AR. So being more mature, having deeper mechanisms, going away from more or less treasure hunting. So going one place, collecting something, maybe using that in a fight. So exploring other genres. So exploring completely other mechanisms and giving a deeper and more immersive gameplay is something we have to see. And and also not only using, like, having the phone here, holding it, and seeing something on your desk. So there's so much more to it. I think with AR, you still see that we are totally at the beginning of making great things happen. And I think that we're learning so much from the different approaches at this point, that I think that this year, probably more next year, we will see some really amazing stuff where people start thinking out of the box, and not everything you see was that was the natural fit, what we have seen on the market so far. And now it looks, now we have to look for the gems and for the new stuff no one really has thought about. And this is, I think, also the beauty about AR or XR or VR, that this is an area where we can explore completely new types of games. But it takes time to explore.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think a lot of the games previously were just ports or using existing IP, and there was never built for that platform. If you look at Half-Life now, it's one of the biggest IPs in games, and they've done it VR only. And it's also about how we're broadcasting now, how people are figuring out ways to broadcast VR and AR content. Like I said, there was 48,000 people at peak playing Half-Life, and there was 300,000 people watching it on Twitch. And it's the first time Twitch had ever featured a VR game on their front page. So that type of, again, people are now watching people play VR and AR. And it's like the last panel was about esports, like how we can turn esports into like a VR watching experience, or watching other people play VR esports as well.
But I just want to chime in there. I think that's a very good point. But it's, as a developer, it's very frustrating because you're like, VR and AR has to be experienced, and watching it from a flat screen, it looks like a looks like an old PC game, right? It's not the same thing at all. So it is very hard to kind of convey that fantastic feeling you're feeling when you're playing new Half-Life, and it feels like the future. This is wow. So I hope we soon get to a place where people really figure out a way to get headsets on everybody.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, of those 300,000 people watching on Twitch, right? Hopefully, 10% then pick up a headset afterwards, right? Or they hear the player like, "Wow, this is unbelievable," and they sell it to them as like the influencer.
Mm.
So I was actually a question. I know we talk about Half-Life Alyx quite a bit. Actually, one of my questions was sort of thinking about that. Like, do you think it's going to have like a huge impact on the VR market? Is this the game? There's always the talk of like when a console comes out, when it has the killer app. Like, is Half-Life Alyx the killer app for VR, or are we still sort of waiting until we see something else at this point?
Go on, Tommy.
I definitely think it's going to push a few more people to buy. I think it's a great production. It's like a proper game. I love that Valve did that. You know, a lot of people are waiting for the next Half-Life, and here it comes, and it's exclusively for VR. And you have a chance to experience something in a new way that you couldn't. Releasing a new Half-Life on PC would be extremely difficult to kind of take it to that next step.
I think it's the killer app of 2020. I think, you know, a lot of developers have now sat up and taken notice of how serious, you know, the direction is that we're going in. And one of the things that we're really excited about, of course, having sort of played Half-Life Alyx and working in the realm that we work in, is being able to finally get rid of that uncanny valley and really putting real things. I think one of the things that I said on Twitter all the time when I saw screenshots from Half-Life Alyx, and then when I played it myself, was, why can't this gun be real? Why can't this truck be real? Why isn't this, you know, I am in it. I want to be touching it. I want to be near it. I want to feel it, and I need to have that connection. And we're still not there in terms of that connection, but we're getting a damn sight closer than we ever were before. Even compared to 2019, Half-Life Alyx has opened so many doors for developers, and so we've got to keep going in that direction.
Yeah, it's a giant stepping stone. I think the highest VR concurrent game as of last year was Beat Saber, about 4,000 people at one time, and then Boneworks, that was released recently, like 8,500 people concurrent. Again, goodish numbers. And then Half-Life blew out of the water with 42,000. I still don't think it's the killer app. I think it's, like I said, a huge stepping stone. A huge killer app is Dota or Counter-Strike, you know, stuff that people are going to come back to all the time, like League of Legends. Like, it's the type of multiplayer, constant, like the iteration loop of playing, coming on every day or every week to play it. Like, you're going to play Half-Life a few times, but you're not going to come back and play it all the time.
Are you saying Final Fantasy VII remake in VR?
maybe.
I would love to see like World of Warcraft 2 come on VR only. That'd be really good.
That would be incredible. And also, while we're on the topic of VR and what's sort of like driving the market, I'm hugely interested in the Oculus Quest, because it seems to me like that's kind of where VR has been working towards, is that kind of standalone headset. That's the whole console, and I'm desperate to buy one, and I don't have enough money, and now they're sold out. But is like, how important has that overall been to the VR market? And is that where developers should be focusing their attention? Is that where the market is going towards, or is it just still another part of the overall VR scape, I guess? Anybody at all?
Well, my opinion is, so we're still very early days of VR. I think for me the Quest is the first decent headset that is solving a lot of the issues. Like, when I now finally took the time to play the new Half-Life Alyx, took me a really long time to get it started, like drivers, and I don't know what the problem was. I'm a computer scientist, and I've been working with games all my life, and I just couldn't figure out what was matter with and why it didn't work. But finally, I got it work. But so many kind of regular gamers would be super frustrated by that process of getting it started. And I think that's one of the great innovations with a VR only headset like the Quest, where there is no drivers that needs to be updated. Just put it on and go.
Yeah.
I would like to pitch in, because I still believe that the right product is still or the right game is still the better driver than a new VR set. Mm-hmm. So I had the pleasure of working with a team, really fantastic people, working in the VR space, but very, very high level, and also creating their own hardware, which is not shippable, which is not mass production, but it's what you can do if you have all the time and good resources on your hand, and you can create a really spectacular VR set. And the difference is incredible. So it will still take us a long way until we have a headset which is so comfortable to wear, which has such a super duper resolution, which is fantastic. So it will still take us time to be there. So I personally don't believe that it's the next generation which is really pushing, but it's the next product. It's what we have seen. So your question was Half-Life. So that is a much better driver, because people will want to do that. People will not only want to have new glasses.
And for us doing research and development, one of the most important things is 6 degrees of freedom. And that is really pushing research and development for us. We have created a demo where, by using 6 degrees of freedom, you can now smash things. We can really get quite a lot out of physical objects now that we couldn't before on previous headsets and with previous devices. And we're really being able to do both in the physics side in AR and also in VR as well. So it's very exciting for us to be able to ride alongside, the technological developments that are happening now and that are coming as well. But for me, the most exciting thing of the last kind of 3 or 4 years has been the development of 6 degrees of freedom. And I think we can really go even further.
Cool. So we'll go off VR for a bit. And I just want to touch on mixed reality and that kind of thing for a bit. So Josh, prepare yourself. This is all going to start heading towards you, initially at least. So obviously mixed reality, there are games for it. It is becoming a gaming platform, but I personally would still argue that it's more of an enterprise thing at the moment. First of all, is that true? And are we going to see like it growing quickly into becoming a popular gaming platform this year, or is it going to take a few years? Or what do you see as like the road for gaming in MR?
Yeah, for me right now, Magic Leap has worked with developers, creators, artists, game developers, all sorts of people to make really immersive content in spatial computing, right? But we know that the headset price, the headset where it is right now, is not suited for consumers. Mm-hmm. It's not suited for game developers, like game players who want to play regularly. And the market isn't there for that. So that's why we are focusing on enterprise. We're working on solutions to enable co-presence and collaboration and training and healthcare. But we have funded games. We've funded Resolution. We've worked on them with Angry Birds and Glimt. We've done a bit of everything. The main area that we want to push in a consumer or a gaming sense is location-based experiences. Obviously, that's not gone too well in the current situation. But we're working. It's in the UK with Factory 42 that have got a massive, big Innovate UK grant for the Natural History Museum and the Science Museum. Working the Royal Shakespeare Company on location-based things for them, for like Midsummer Night's Dream. So we still want to take the technology to consumers to allow them to experience what the future will bring, whether that's in 5 years or 10 years. Like the devices are going to get smaller and more powerful and more accessible. But yeah, overall, like games are such an amazing medium to show off the technology. Like the first thing that I give people is Angry Birds. As soon as I give them Magic Leap, I'm like, try Angry Birds. It's so good because it's so obvious and easy, and game developers as a whole just know how to onboard players a lot better than enterprise applications, and it's more fun and engaging, and the colors are great and the birds are hilarious. So games are a great platform for educating and teach people how to use the technology.
Cool. Tommy, you've been developing in MR for the aforementioned Angry Birds, I believe was one of yours. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I really, well, thank you for the praise. The team worked really hard on making Angry Birds kind of true to its original design. It was one of these games on mobile that was very easy to understand and had its really made good use of the touch mechanics. The Angry Birds we did for Magic Leap was a quite small project, but like my old time friend and our CTO was working very hard with that, with a small bunch of people to try to make an experience that would be both kind of utilizing the spatial environment a little bit at the same time as being very easy to get into and understand what you're doing. So I think that's always a challenge. It's very easy to see a new platform and kind of think 2 or 3 steps ahead and forget how difficult it is for somebody who's new to that platform to figure out how to, like, what is the difference between trigger button and the menu button that brings you out into the operating system again, and then they're like totally gone. And we had several journalist meetings when we were showing it, when people said like, I don't like Angry Birds, or I don't like Magic Leap. I already wrote my review, and they came in and they checked it out and they changed their mind completely and said, oh, by the way, this is amazing. And that, because it was such a kind of simple experience to get into, I think. I do believe that AR further down the line, like the important stuff there is going to be the things that enhance me, makes me kind of RoboCop, half human, half cyborg, helps this like memory, computing power, really quickly figuring out, being able to work with other people in real time. These are the things that's going to kind of make humans go to the next step in our evolution. But games is going to help figuring out a lot of this stuff on the way. Like, how do we do standard interface in a good way so people understand where to press and how to go on to the next segment, and very simple stuff.
Cool. I'm just looking, I've finally worked out where the Q&A panel is on our thing. We do have a couple of questions that have been sent in, so I would like to just quickly dive into those. I know we're coming up against time, but it'd be interesting. So we've got one here. A panel of investors yesterday said they were collectively holding back on AR and VR, suggesting it's not as attractive as it was. So with this in mind, where is the investment going to come from for both large and small game development? Anybody, feel free to jump in on that one.
I can start. I have some experience with raising money in the space. I think venture capitalists and investors are very much herd mentality, and they want to. Right now, it's AI. That's where you want to put your money. I think that there is great investments to be made in this space, but it is difficult to. It is going to take a lot of money because you have a very new type of platform. And as was said previously by Kelly, you need new type of experiences. It's not going to be iterations of classical video games it's going to be completely new type of stuff that we haven't seen before. And that is expensive. So as an investor, it's good to be a little bit cautious. I think right now we're seeing and the platform owners like Magic Leap and Oculus putting quite a bit of money into content development. I think that's part of where that money is going to have to be coming from. I think like EU has some grants, for instance. I know the UK has grants. I think you're gonna be entrepreneurial and kind of get a little bit from here and a little bit from there in order to make new stuff.
I think if you're offering games as a service, if you're offering enterprise platforms, you're always going to come up against these issues where the big question from the VCs is going to be, how are you going to pass the cost on to the end user? And one of the important things that we can't do in this space is we can't make this space more expensive than it currently is. Mm-hmm. If anything, we've got to work the opposite. And so one of the ways to be able to do that is use the available technology that we have. And as Tommy said, you know, use these grants. I'm usually on, you can find me in the European Commission for video games. I'm on the panel there every year. And one of the things that we find is that we've always got spaces open to be able to support people in prototypes. You know, it's wrong for venture capitalists to sort of say, well, we're not going to kind of invest in AR and VR this year. When you look at the hardware developers that really are putting a lot of money behind these devices, we were just talking about Apple earlier, they're really going crazy because they want you as the end user to be able to use their device and use their platform to be able to scan and do all the stuff that game development companies are doing anyway. It's just that you're not there yet because you're the end user. You're riding the wave. And we need to make sure that we just don't pass that cost on to the end user. Apple might, but I think game developers generally will not, hopefully. And certainly device developers shouldn't either.
Yeah, I've certainly seen over the past 3-4 years, all the hardware platforms done a pretty good job in investing in content with quite a lot of money to hand out to the right people. And recently, it's most of the tooling that has been getting the acquisitions or getting the funding. You know, like 60AI just got bought by Niantic. I think Facebook just bought Scape Technologies as well at geolocation. Apple was talking about, you know, the rumors about Next VR. IKEA Group just bought a AI imaging startup. So all of those toolings for the content is doing pretty well. And yeah, I guess that the governments as well have done a pretty good job in getting out there and giving, like, you know, Series A funding for a lot of startups. I think it's the middle between those that's the big problem. You know, like, it's easy to maybe get 50 to 200K, but how do you get 500K to $1 million? And that's where a lot of people are struggling, I think.
I think I totally agree with Josh. So I think it will be hard to raise funds for the next AR game or VR game or whatever it is at this point. But when you're working on the other side, so on the technology provider side or tool side, so that you can have easier ways of creating new forms of content, that is a completely different thing. So same here in Germany, we also see a lot of different kinds of sponsorships, or the European Union offers stuff like that. And again, the acquisitions you mentioned are something to take really serious.
Cool. Take another question from the Q&A as well, because I think this one's very interesting indeed. And it leads into what I'm going to hopefully be my final question, because I know we're getting close to 7 o'clock. Is it about time we start talking about AR without saying and VR, and vice versa? Is it time we separate them? The two are different experiences and most of the time different hardware. And if so, how do we educate ourselves to do that?
This is something I really have strong feelings for, because I have been raging on stage for years now, telling people that we should stop talking about AR and VR. Mm-hmm. Or there are so many working groups and conferences who are talking about VR, and in truth they mean VR and AR. And we are not doing a really great job in differentiating the two things. I mean, they're totally different technologies. You have other prerequisites. You have different gameplay loops. You have different ways of monetization. These are two very separate things. I mean, at some point, we will be going more and more in the future into a mixed reality thing. But as of now, we really, really should talk about these things differently, because you cannot, I mean, we have seen this today as well. You cannot answer a question. A question you are asking will always be answered completely different when you look from the AR perspective or from the VR perspective. These are two different things, and why not label them correctly?
From the tools perspective, it's all very relevant to us that we, turn our attention the way that we do between AR, VR, MR, and we try to just, catch all as XR. But AR is like super important. And again, it's a really good place to get started. It's a really good place to, as Christina said, meet with groups on there. There are a lot of people that are developing for AR that are doing some incredible stuff. It's not just about Google Tiger and Google search for an animal. It's also about the other stuff. Microsoft are working with Eighth Wall. We're working with Microsoft as well on Eighth Wall's AR program. There's some really great stuff that's happening. But again, the problem that we've got is the mobile phones that we're using and the AR technology that we're using is becoming obsolete too quickly. It's becoming like, I got a really great phone last year. I've got to get another new phone now because I need that device optimization to be able to make everything work within my phone. So it's the devices that are really driving the technology once again. And that is making people a little bit sort of uptight about, oh, well, surely it's going to be cheaper for me to just buy an Oculus. Well, no, I mean, you get a totally different experience if you're looking at stuff through the iPad than if you're looking at stuff through an Android and if you're looking at stuff through Oculus. So horses for courses, isn't it? But we've got to keep being evangelical and we've got to keep driving this home, because otherwise, we're just going to be stuck in a mainstream loop constantly where no content's going to be created, no one's going to be doing anything, and development's not going to get made.
Yeah, anybody else? Thoughts on undermining the entire idea of this talk in general?
I do think that they are different things sometimes. Sometimes they're the same, like they share a lot of the same underlying technology. As a video game developer, some of the stuff we can reuse, like when we made Angry Birds for Magically, we emulated it in VR, which showed us that we could make a great VR game out of it. So we did. And going forward, looking like 10 or 15 years into the future, I think it's going to be the same device that does both VR and AR in some occasions. But right now, yes, I think other conferences might benefit from deep diving into AR technology. I think AR is super, super interesting, and there's a lot of things that's gonna happen there eventually. But it's a little bit further down the line. I think one of the interesting things with this talk is that there is stuff happening right now that we can act on as developers, and as a consumer, you will very soon be able to participate in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, it can be the same in some ways and completely opposite in others. I think the main thing I take away from it, especially in game dev conferences, is that a lot of people see them as the same. And game developers are generally at the forefront of the new design processes. Like, they're always thinking about what's different about this platform and how can we adapt that to our design. And the amount of enterprise companies I encounter that don't really understand that or don't know how to onboard a player or to make use of the hardware. And I just say, find a game developer and they'll be able to do that for you as quickly as anything, because we're used to, changing hardware all the time. We're used to different players understanding how to onboard, or people how they consume the technology. So it's yeah, it's always great to have game developers at the forefront of this technology because they can do amazing things with it.
Cool. And just to sort of wrap up and to point back to something that Tommy was saying about that everything going to end up on the same device. I mean, are we soon going to see, because the talks I've heard and the things I've heard is kind of at some point everything will be on the same device, and the worlds of AR, VR, and MR are all going to kind of blur together, and you'll have all that just on like a pair of glasses. Or I saw somebody saying there's going to be a chip installed in your brain and that's going to do it, and they were very serious about it, so I'm excited to have that installed in my brain. Is that something that is definitely going to happen? Are these going to remain separate technologies with different capabilities forever, or is it all just going to sort of merge into one big XR thing?
I think it's very clear to me, at least, when you think about what a pair of glasses that has a computer attached to it and then the internet can do to your life if it's there all the time and can be contextually aware of everything that's around you. That's something that we're gonna want to wear all the time. So we're heading into that future. Those magic glasses, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I think it's going to be several small components. I think the kind of what they call your Apple
the AirPods.
AirPods.
Thank you. Are a good first step when you have something that's very comfortably there and you can talk to and ask to help you do certain stuff. So I think it's going to kind of be divided into several components for some time.
Cool.
I mean, it is. I think it's, or in my view, it's also clear that AR cannot be the way we are using AR right now. So if you're thinking about using your mobile phone to holding it all the time in front of your face to see the AR visuals, I mean, this is the most uncomfortable thing you can do. This is totally stupid. So if we would have had the opportunity to change that, we would have changed that. And I personally also think that glasses are okay for everyone who already wears glasses. But for people who are so lucky that the eyesight is so good that you don't need glasses, it will be a big hindrance to wear these things on your nose because they are heavy. Sometimes your ears hurt. So there will be the wish for contact lenses or the chip. If it's in your brain, I don't know, maybe somewhere else, or if it's only a little thing you clip behind your ear, which is projecting onto your eye, I don't know what it will be. But I mean, this is what science fiction is talking about for centuries now. So for so long a time, and this is something we all dream about. So I personally believe, yes, it will be streamlined. And there is no difference. I mean, at some point, if you want the real world to be shown with your glasses, fine. If you want to shut everything down and make everything dark and have only the experience in VR, so why should the glasses do that? So, but the point is, so what I'm really excited about is figuring out where we will be at some point when we are not talking about glasses anymore, but the contact lenses, the chip, the net on your head, or whatever it is. So this is the thing which gets me really excited.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah. Yeah, it's obviously a very, very, very long way, right? Like, I mean, I'm still waiting for my hover skateboard that was promised about 30 years ago, and that's still not here. So when we talk about chips in heads, it's a long way. I think it's also about how the world understanding of these devices, right? We need to think of how we are going to interact with the world around us and the devices that understand the world. Like our device can scan objects in a room and tell you how many table surfaces are in the room right now, or how many posters you have on the walls, and store persistent locations and anchor those locations, the digital objects to those locations. Like, how do we use color in the world with the camera on the device to to affect gameplay or interaction. That's the thing that excites me the most about this technology, is how the technology understands the world.
I think that is everything I wanted to talk about. Thank you very much, everybody. Chris is going to rejoin us with his very cool glasses.
Thank you very much. I've been thoroughly enjoying this.